Howie Roseman loves him some trench play with the 9th overall pick in the 2023 NFL draft. The Philadelphia Eagles trade up to get another Georgia defensive lineman, this time Jalen Carter. I'm Peter Bukowski with Gino Cammillari from Locked On Eagles. Locked On NFL Draft coverage is presented by Ultimate Football GM. You think you can run an NFL franchise? Probably not better than Howie Roseman. Visit ultimate-gm.com to play the ultimate NFL GM simulation game. Start your dynasty today. Gino, this was the move that was rumored for the last few weeks, that Howie would want to get up and get Jalen Carter, feeling like they have the infrastructure to deal with whatever the questions are off the field. What do you think ultimately was the impetus to adding another behemoth on the inside here?
It's the standard operating procedure for the Philadelphia Eagles, right? And I tweeted out all those Bijan mocks were kind of a waste at that point, right? Because if you follow the breadcrumbs of what the Eagles have done, they always go with the trenches. And especially in this paradigm shift of Howie Roseman over the last couple of years, SEC players, guys that have played big-time football, big-time minutes in big-time games. You're talking about a 2-time national championship winner here. And, the off-field stuff, who better to vouch for him than Nakobe Dean, Jordan Davis, two guys that played right there with him. You lost Javon Hargrave. There was a big need to go and fill that position. And the NFL knew that this was the pick, and they allowed the Eagles to only give up a future 4th-round selection to move up 1 pick to get arguably one of the top 2 pass rushers in the class outside of Will Anderson. With the Tyree Wilson medical now, you can make the argument that Jalen Carter was the next best guy after Will Anderson. And where better for him to go than into a culture where Jalen Hurts is your leader? Everybody is bought into the one mission, which is getting back to the Super Bowl. Guys like Jason Kelce are coming back. You still have the pillars in Lane Johnson and Jordan Mailata and Hassan Riddick and Slay and all these guys that know what it takes to win. I don't think the threat of ruining a culture is there with a guy who, what is his risk versus his upside? Well, his upside is he could be a potential Hall of Fame type of player, and you're making these top 10 picks and you're a Super Bowl losing team. You're not going to be in the top 10 that often. Why not go and get one of those blue chip foundational players to where if it does work out for the best, you're talking about a guy who is going to see his entire career in Philadelphia, could be the torch bearer for after Fletcher Cox when he leaves, and be that next guy where you're saying, man, the Eagles just continue to get interior pressure. How do they do that? Well, they take guys like Jalen Carter, like Jordan Davis. And I was maniacally laughing on our show. How does the NFL keep doing this? How do they keep allowing Howie Roseman to make these moves? And you talked about it on the intro. You trade up, but you didn't have to mortgage the future. You didn't give up 1st-round picks next year like Houston did to go up and get Will Anderson. And you didn't even give up as much as you did to go and get Jordan Davis. And all at the same time, you have the 30th selection still. You have the 62nd, and right before the draft starts, there's some tampering going on with Jonathan Gannon, and Arizona is forced to give the Eagles one of the top 3 picks in the 3rd round. So after this, it's like, man, you could just continue to add to positions of need, even positions that aren't current needs, because you got one of these blue chip going to change the face of the organization type players in Jalen Carter. And Howie Roseman, if he is going to make a pick, this isn't like out of draft day where they start doing work on them just 10 hours before the draft. They probably turned over every single stone, found every nook and cranny, asked every single person from the head coach of Georgia down to the janitor who probably cleans out Georgia's equipment room.
You'd have to, right? That's the kind of risk we're talking about.
Yeah, that's the type of risk, because, Peter, when you're in the top 10 and the Philadelphia Eagles have only been there a few times, the Carson Wentz selection, the Lane Johnson selection, it went right with one of them and it went wrong with the other. And is Carson Wentz a regret? I wouldn't say it's a regret. I think it's a way to kind of learn and change and figure out what is going to work for you. Jalen Reagor, obviously, was a bad pick as well. And you look at the J.J. Arcega-Whiteside selections, but what did Howie Roseman do? He one-upped himself and was able to change the way that he drafted, and not only has kept his job and got him off the hot seat, who is better at their job in the NFL right now than Howie Roseman? I mean, he's continuing to put this team in a place to where they can compete, not just now, but for many years, because that Super Bowl team of 2017, it was older, a lot of free agents, a lot of guys like Alshon Jeffrey that were aging out. And you're saying, what is the window forward? Well, now you have that window. It's wide open. and you're smelling the fresh air for what is going to be your conference. It is your conference right now. With Jalen Hurts and all of these pieces, you are setting yourself up to once again be the favorite to get back to the Super Bowl in the NFC. And you just added Jalen Carter to that. After an offseason where you lost a lot of starters, not only do you get a guy for the now, you get a guy for the later. You didn't mortgage the future. And they also have their actual pick at 30, which they could add a cornerback now. They could potentially add one of those offensive linemen. The talk was that they loved Peter Skoronski and loved Paris Johnson. But when guys like Jalen Carter fall and blue chippers like that fall that were talked about as being the potential number one, not just this year, but last year, guys were saying, he's better than Jordan Davis. And Jordan Davis was the Eagles pick at 13, so why wouldn't they double up? I love taking SEC guys that have played against some of the premier offensive linemen, have played in big games. And when you turn on the tape, you always turn on the most important games. National championships, he lifts the trophy. I mean, how can you not want this guy in Philadelphia? Hats off to Howie and everybody in that building for getting it done.
Yeah, what a luxury to be the defending NFC champs and going, we don't really have any needs. What are those? We have the most complete roster in the sport. Why don't we just go up and get maybe the best player in the draft? Yeah, sounds easy enough. Howie Roseman is a master once again. For more on the Eagles draft and all things Eagles, you can catch Gino on Locked On Eagles, where you can subscribe wherever you get podcasts, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Gino, thanks, man.